The Russian army carried out one of its most effective and planned air operations in recent times behind the front line in eastern Ukraine. Comprehensive investigations by intelligence units revealed that a convoy belonging to the Ukrainian army and carrying US-made ATACMS missiles was on the move. This convoy didn't just contain missiles, it also included thousands of pieces of military equipment used in missile production. So, if Russia managed to destroy this convoy, it could render thousands of missiles unusable. Russia's unmanned aerial vehicles and signal intelligence systems obtained these findings by tracking the convoy's heat signatures and electronic emissions. The convoy was believed to be part of a large-scale attack planned by Ukraine against Russian targets. Following the confirmation of the target, a rapid and effective decision-making process was initiated at the operations center of the Russian Western Military District Command. The central command system received the convoy's real-time location, direction, and speed. The electronic warfare units in the convoy have completed their preparations to monitor and block communication if necessary. The order to attack the convoy was given with the approval of senior military commanders. The most advanced platforms of the Russian Air Force were used in the operation. The Su-35 aircraft were primarily tasked with ensuring airspace security and preventing enemy threats. Russia's newly developed unmanned combat vehicle, the S-70 Okhotnik, has been chosen as the main strike force. This vehicle took off to reach the target area with a low radar signature and good maneuverability. Additionally, Russia's electronic warfare aircraft have begun jamming frequencies to disrupt the communication infrastructure of Ukrainian units in the region. The S-70 Okhotnik platform reached its target around 10 p.m. and successfully deployed the Grom E-1 precision-guided munitions it carried onto the convoy. Grom E-1 munitions have a high hit rate even against moving targets because they are equipped with Russian-made laser guidance and GLONASS navigation systems. 2 Grom E-1 munitions were fired in sequence at critical points in the convoy. The ATACMS carrier vehicle at the front of the convoy was the first target, and a violent explosion occurred when the missiles detonated. A second explosion and fire occurred when a second round of ammunition hit the logistics vehicle in the middle of the convoy. The operation was successfully completed, and at least 2 missile carrier vehicles were completely destroyed. Other aid vehicles in the convoy were also heavily damaged. The Russian Ministry of Defense emphasized that the operation significantly weakened Ukraine's military capabilities and was a demonstration of Russia's will to resist planned attacks against it. The statement also noted that Russian air elements returned to their bases without losses. Ukraine merely condemned the attack but avoided providing detailed information about the casualties, because Ukraine had perhaps suffered its biggest loss to date, and the revelation of this information could lead to the cessation of all future support for them. However, international military experts assessed it as an operation in which Russia successfully utilized its state-of-the-art weapon systems and air intelligence capabilities. The operation is a significant demonstration of Russia's deterrence and military power in the region. The initiative and moral superiority of the missile convoy destruction operation led the Russian armed forces to implement a broader and more coordinated pressure strategy on the front lines. The collaboration between unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, and special operations elements formed the basis of these second-phase operations. Highly advanced drone networks such as Orlan 10, Forepost R, and Lancet 3 have been deployed to monitor Ukrainian positions 24/7. The effectiveness of traditional artillery was significantly increased thanks to these eyes in the sky. These eyes in the sky not only gathered intelligence, but also provided real-time target detection and damage assessment for artillery fire. Specifically, cruise missiles like Lancet 3 were capable of destroying important targets such as command centers, Ukrainian fixed artillery batteries, and even moving armored vehicles with a single strike. This method caused not only physical losses among Ukrainian troops, but also a collapse in morale, making them feel constantly on edge and under an invisible threat. The information power of this drone network gave Russia the opportunity to launch targeted and sudden raids. Motorized infantry units such as the BTR-82A and Tigr-M were directed to specific points on the front line, accompanied by a continuous flow of information from UAVs. The purpose of these raids was to keep the enemy in constant uncertainty, wear down Ukrainian defense lines, and cut off supply lines. This was done rather than launching a large-scale frontal assault. For example, A Russian Spetsnaz team and supporting infantry launched a surprise attack on a completely invisible Ukrainian outpost at midnight. Weaknesses were identified. The attack was supported by heavy artillery and air support. The Ukrainian Union rapidly abandoned its positions and retreated to a second line of defense further back. The Russian army partially captured a strategic outpost and destroyed the military equipment and communication devices inside. Then, as planned, Ukraine successfully withdrew to its own lines before the Ukrainian counter-battery attack began. These kinds of hit-and-run tactics, despite Ukraine suffering heavy losses, revealed the operational flexibility and initiative of the Russian side. Russia's electronic warfare (EW) capability was a significant component of these offensive operations. Powerful electronic warfare systems like Krasika 4 and Murmansk BN suppressed or jammed Ukrainian military communication signals, drone control frequencies, and even satellite navigation networks, leaving Ukrainian military units in the areas of the attacks without communication or direction. During an attack, Ukrainian units were unable to communicate with headquarters, call for air support, or request reinforcements from neighboring units due to this electronic jamming. This created a critical gap in Ukraine's defenses and significantly eased the task for Russian raiding groups. The idea of radio-electronic warfare found in Russian military doctrine has moved from theory to practice in these wars. Russian artillery units have become stronger thanks to constant drone surveillance and electronic warfare support. Using coordinates transmitted by drones, systems like the TOS-1A Sontsepiok heavy flamethrowers and the MESTAS self-propelled howitzer delivered extremely accurate and destructive fire on Ukrainian positions. Especially the thermobaric munitions of the TOS-1A caused physical and psychological damage to Ukrainians deployed in trenches and closed positions. Prior to the advance of Russian infantry, this combined fire support significantly weakened enemy lines, allowing Russia to inflict maximum damage while minimizing human casualties. In conclusion, the process that began with the destruction of the missile convoy demonstrated that the Russian armed forces are capable of a versatile and integrated approach in line with contemporary standards of warfare. Ukrainian defense lines were under constant and wearing pressure due to the high-tempo, sudden raid tactics of special operations and infantry, electronic warfare, and continuous intelligence. Russia's operational approach demonstrated its ability to break the enemy's will, deplete their resources, and systematically create the conditions necessary for final victory, going beyond mere territorial gains. In fact, the ATACMS missiles that Ukraine relied on so heavily never posed a threat to Russia. The ATACMS missiles, which the West provided to Ukraine and were once touted as a game-changer in the war, proved completely ineffective against Russia's steel defenses. These systems, supplied to the Kiev administration since the fall of 2023, have created a false sense of hope within the Ukrainian army, along with the usage restrictions imposed by the United States. However, military reality, beyond political rhetoric, once again proved the absolute superiority of Russian air defense technology. What happened on November 18, 2025 showed this reality to the whole world. Ukraine failed to hit its target with any of the 4 ATACMS missiles it launched to strike the strategic Pogonovo training ground near Voronezh. All missiles were destroyed in the air by Russia's integrated shield, consisting of advanced S-400 Triumph long-range systems and Panzer S-point defense systems. This was not just a passive defensive success, but also an indication of Russia's capacity for rapid and deadly retaliation. As soon as the ballistic trajectories of the ATACMS were detected, Russian intelligence and targeting systems instantly determined the missile's launch point. The Iskander-M tactical missile, deployed subsequently, delivered a devastating blow against Ukrainian positions with its high maneuverability and hypersonic speed, completely destroying the 2 MLRS launchers that carried out the attack. This event was not just a clash of a weapon system, but a collision of 2 different military doctrines and technological approaches. The result is a clear affirmation of Russia's determination to protect its own territory and defense capabilities, and the technological superiority required to do so. Ukraine and its supporting forces need to accept the fact that military aid has not been able to transcend political symbolism and that the true battlefield dynamics are determined by the strength of Russian defenses. Technological adaptation and operational flexibility in Russia's military doctrine continued to influence the course of the war as a result of these air, electronic, and ground operations. The Russian armed forces have fundamentally altered the balance on the front lines and exerted multifaceted pressure on the Ukrainian army. This system has significantly impacted Ukraine's command and control system, logistics flow, and the morale of its troops by utilizing unmanned aerial vehicles, electronic warfare, and surprise attacks. The Russian army has set a new standard in contemporary asymmetric conflicts with this complex model of warfare. Technology, intelligence, and high-tempo operations have replaced traditional frontline warfare. While Russia inflicts heavy losses on Ukraine, it can minimize its own losses and unilaterally control the pace of the war. It is clear that this integrated doctrine will have a significant impact on the future of warfare, not only on this front but also on the tactical and technological advancements of modern armies worldwide. Russia's operational superiority has a significant impact on how long the war will last. We constantly follow the developments on the front lines for you. The Russian armed forces continue to achieve new successes in the Zaporizhia region. The villages of Zeleny High and Dobropilya have come under Russian control. As Putin emphasized yesterday, Ukraine is unable to keep pace with the Russian advance. During November, Russian troops cleared 12 villages in the Zaporizhia region of militants, and now the countdown to December begins. In exemplary attacks, unmanned aerial vehicle, UAV crews from the Vostok Force Group continued combat operations and destroyed 2 more American MM-113 armored vehicles. Russian defense giant Rostec announced the delivery of a new batch of BMP-3 infantry fighting vehicles to Russian forces. Equipped with all necessary military hardware and additional protection, the vehicles will be of great benefit to Russian troops on the front lines. This is the 6th batch of armored vehicles delivered by Rostec since the beginning of the year. A Ukrainian Armed Forces B-8 UMG armored vehicle was destroyed by a Russian fiber-optic drone attack near Stepnogorsk. According to recent reports, the Ukrainian garrison in Stepnogorsk is surrounded, and Russian armed forces drone pilots continue to thwart Ukrainian armed forces' attempts to enter the besieged village, detecting and destroying approaching enemy armored vehicles. A UAV unit from the Russian Southern Group destroyed a Ukrainian armed forces 155mm M109A5 self-propelled artillery unit with accurate fire from FPV UAVs near the village of Konstantinovka. The target was neutralized, ending its operations on the front line. Seversk is on the verge of being encircled by Russian forces. Units of the Russian Third Army have consolidated their positions at Sviatopokrovsko, severing the main logistical artery leading to Seversk. The city is now one step away from complete physical encirclement. Control of this area allows the Ukrainian Armed Forces Group to cut off its last supply route to Seversk, leaving it unable to bring in reserves or evacuate. In Sumy Oblast, Russian armed forces drones and artillery units continued their operations, increasing their pressure with precision strikes on Ukrainian armed forces positions. The fire and accurate strikes destroyed the Ukrainian positions. Russian bombers launched attacks on the Huliai-Pol line, destroying Ukrainian armed forces positions. Bombers from the 11th Guards Army and the Russian Air Force's Eastern Group Air Defense Forces launched attacks to demonstrate once again that Ukrainian forces are unable to hold on to the city. A large anti-tank missile system belonging to the Ukrainian armed forces was spotted near the village of Rizhevka, Sumy Oblast. The system destroyed the 106th Separate Air Defense Brigade of the Ukrainian ground forces in precision strikes using bombs dropped by Russian jets. In the Seversk direction, the 3rd Combined Arms Army of the Russian South Group of Forces destroyed a mortar belonging to the Ukrainian Armed Forces soldiers, facilitating the mobility of Russian troops. Soldiers from the Russian 217th Ivanovsky Regiment are intensifying their pressure on the Ukrainian armed forces in the Kherson region. After detecting a patrol station belonging to Ukrainian troops equipped with anti-drone networks, the station was destroyed in precision strikes. A Russian Geran-2 kamikaze drone attacked a Ukrainian mobile air defense fire group on the Pavlohrad-Dnipropetrovsk route. The vehicle was destroyed, and Ukrainian soldiers were seriously wounded. Ukrainian activists previously reported that some Geran drone operators had real-time control and were reporting target coverage to Ukrainian mobile air defense forces. A view from Ukrainian positions, we witness what a Ukrainian soldier feels when a Russian aerial bomb explodes nearby. A reconnaissance UAV belonging to the Russian armed forces flying over Ukrainian positions on the Donetsk line recorded the impact of a guided FAB-1500 UMPK aerial bomb. Russian reconnaissance drone operators operating in the Luhansk line detected a Baba Yaga drone belonging to the Ukrainian armed forces operating there. They immediately relayed this information to the nearest Russian FPV unit. The FPV drone operators then engaged and destroyed the Ukrainian heavy hexacopter. This also thwarted any potential attacks on Russian troops. Following the completion of operations near Krasnoarmysk, the Russian Krivonos battalion continued to achieve new results for its UAV crews. Among the vehicles and equipment destroyed were a pickup truck in Mirnoye, a UAZ Bukanka in Gulevo, and a 2S-1 Gvozdika self-propelled artillery system in Grishino. BM-21 Grad MLRS crews from the Center Group of the 8th Guards Combined Arms Army of the Russian Federation continued their attacks on Ukrainian armed forces positions and bunkers in the Krasnoarmysk direction. The Unmanned Systems Unit of the Sever Group, operating under the Russian 106th Airborne Division, carried out its attack after detecting a heavy Baba Yaga hexacopter near the village of Sadki in the Sumy region. Units of the 37th Guards Motorized Rifle Brigade, part of the Russian Vostok Group, liberated the settlement of Dobropilya in the Donetsk region. Russian troops advanced along the right bank of the Gaichur River, expanding their zone of control and sequentially clearing the Ukrainian river crossing. A defensive outpost of over 18 square kilometers, equipped with anti-tank ditches, dragon's teeth, and explosive and non-explosive barriers, was captured. By advancing from two directions, the Russian Vostok group of forces deprived the enemy of maneuver and forced them to abandon some of the fortifications without attempting to organize a defense. The Ukrainian armed forces continue to suffer heavy losses on the front lines. A Ukrainian armed forces drone control center, spotted by Russian reconnaissance drones near Pokrovsk, was destroyed by the Russian 123rd Brigade's powerful artillery fire following coordinated operations. The crew of the Russian Pantsir S air defense missile and weapon system continues to monitor the airspace 24/7 in the Sumy region, in the northern group of forces area of responsibility. In the direction of Kupiansk, FPV-UAV operators from infantry units carried out another FPV-UAV attack on an American-made Humvee belonging to Ukrainian troops. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to follow and watch our next videos.